Welcome to the Fantasy Syndicate Podcast with your hosts, Joshua Poniatowski and Alex Taylor. Let's talk football.
Hello, and welcome to the Fantasy Syndicate Podcast. My name is Joshua Poniatowski, and here, as always, with my co-host, Alex Taylor. What's up, dude?
What up?
So today, what are we talking about today, Alex?
Today is our top 10 tight end rankings. But before we kind of dive into that, just a quick reminder, we do still have our jersey giveaway going on. So if you like, subscribe, and also comment per video, you get one entry into the jersey giveaway. We have not picked out a player yet. Last year we did JSN. He, of course, popped off, so we were the good luck charm for him. But so even though we haven't picked out and selected the player jersey yet, these videos are still active, so you can still get those points, get those entries for comments. But Josh, so top 10 tight ends. I know you're working on your draft guide. I know you're a big analytics guy, a big processes kind of guy. How do you kind of use that to coordinate or dive into tight end?
All right, so that's a great question, and it absolutely was not planted whatsoever. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see the draft guide. Again, subscribe, follow us. I'm going to be dropping this shortly. I'm just going to kind of go through my tight end process this year. And I truly believe that I have found something that nobody else is talking about and that the entire fantasy community is wrong on. And I'm super stoked to talk about it and to share about it. I truly believe it.
The whole community.
The whole community. I think they're all wrong. And last year it was running back to win championships. And ADP now is crazy. I'm not going to stop spewing that I got that right before everybody. And then this year, there is a huge gap at the tight end ADP value perspective that I think a lot of people are missing. So, for tight ends, my edge for this year or strategy is to double tap the tight end position. And I'm going to explain why.
Double tap,
it doesn't necessarily double tap. Yep. So it doesn't necessarily, and it fits kind of with the Call of Duty theme and all the other good stuff in Syndicate. This doesn't necessarily mean draft Trey McBride and Brock Bowers, right? That's not necessarily what it means.
Yeah.
It means there's value to be found later in drafts from a double tap perspective. So I went through a couple steps in my process. So number one, it was from my research from 2024. There's an article, you go to our website, you can read about it, but essentially what makes up fantasy scoring for tight ends? And it was volume. Volume correlates with fantasy points. It seems simple, but that's what the data told us. So fantastic. But the next thing I started looking at was the talent at the tight end position, right? So right now, I believe that the NFL has the most talent it has ever had at the tight end position from a pass catcher perspective, from an athleticism perspective. And I am truly shocked nobody is talking about it. And think about it, right? Think about some of the tight ends that we're going to talk about here. It makes a lot of sense, right? So I was like, all right, is that just my theory or what does the data say? So I went back and I started around 2010 and I looked at the NFL draft. So I said, all right, what does the NFL draft say? What do these GMs and these, league owners say as far as how talented these tight ends are? Well, over the past 3 years, we've had 4 tight ends drafted in the top 20 picks. We've had 18 tight ends drafted within the top 64, so first 2 rounds. And then we've had 26 tight ends drafted within the top 100, which is another typical threshold, especially for wide receivers from that perspective. So in that time span, this is the most tight ends that we have ever seen drafted within this high of a rank ever in that 3-year time period. So we're in this crazy tight end sweet spot from a young perspective, a talent perspective, and the data backs it up. And I know some of you are probably going to say, well, what about the 2026 class, right? Tight ends were overdrafted. I took out the 2026 class just to see what the data said, and it said the exact same thing, that we're in this sweet spot for how high tight ends are being drafted, and the NFL believes the same thing because of how they are drafting them. So that's number one. The next thing is the value gap at tight end and at the ADP position. So looking back over the past 5 seasons and looking at the top 8 tight ends at ADP, right? These are the guys that everybody's talking about, everybody's probably drafting. The average year, so we're actually going to scroll down here, Alex. So this bottom right-hand corner, right? Okay. So the average years of experience that a tight end has, in average, if you look at all 8 tight ends, In 2021, it was 5 years. 2022, 5.6. 2023, 6.3. 2025 was the oldest year. We almost were up to 7 years in the league. So like we were drafting a lot of old guys. This year, entering 2026,
you love the old guys.
Average is 3.5. So we're talking about we now have the youngest pocket, not just from NFL drafting, but also from the fantasy community drafting tight end. So we have a young community, and we're giving a perception that like the tight end 8 is not as good as maybe the tight end 3. Well, that might not necessarily be true because they're both year 2 guys. They have breakout potential. They're young. They're talented. So I feel like there is a discrepancy at ADP. And from a points per game perspective, so we're looking at this chart right here. I said, all right, what is the impact that tight ends are actually have? We know they're talented, but are they scoring points, which is what we care about in fantasy? Well, I created multiple thresholds for wide receivers based on how they scored in fantasy on a point per game perspective. And I believe it was an 8-game sample size. I did 8-game, 10-game, and 12-game. And they pretty much all told me the same thing. In 2021, you can see that we had 2 tight ends break into the wide receiver 1 threshold, 4 tight ends in wide receiver 2, 3 tight ends in wide receiver 3 perspective. But as we go down the list, 2025 is the highest that we've ever had tight ends score from a point per game perspective. So there was 3 tight ends in a wide receiver 1 point per game perspective. There was 4 in wide receiver 2. So essentially you're saying there's 7 tight ends that last year, had you drafted from a point per game perspective, if again, hypothetically stayed healthy, would have finished in a wide receiver 2 range from a point per game perspective. And then wide receiver 3, there was 9 guys. The biggest takeaway from this is 2026 is the year of the flex tight end. And my 4th strategy is drafting tight ends in a double tap.
Sure.
So like, I just feel like everybody is missing this from a data perspective. And again, when you think about it, like think about all the guys we're talking about, they're all year 2 to year 4 or 5, and it's the youngest pocket and most talented pocket. And throw on top that the league is shifting, to utilizing and throwing to their tight ends more and more, and touchdowns are becoming more valuable because receiving yards are less and their field position is better, and kickers are scoring more field goals. So it just like all makes sense to me. And I don't know if I'm on an island with this, but yeah.
I get what you're saying. There are a lot of good young guys kind of hitting the scene, especially last year.
Many.
We had like 3 or 4 of them. Rookies kind of make waves, and they're all in. I'll be talking about all of them today here in our top 10. As far as like the NFL itself drafting the tight ends, it's not that not to say these people aren't talented or not, but it could also just be, certain positions get boosted altogether. Like the position of tight end might just be getting drafted higher in relation to, is this tight end better physically or as a player than a tight end like 10 years ago when maybe they weren't drafting tight ends as much. I don't know. I'm just, as like just possible variables that could be at play. It's like, it could just be a positional importance, making it shoot up. But
it's also
I get what you're saying. There's been a lot
data,
of tight ends hitting the scene lately.
So I just wanted to share that again. I feel like this is something that the entire community is missing. As we're going through our guide, I'm going to talk about some of these dudes. And I think there's a specific value pocket for tight ends that people are missing on because we have so many elite ones we like anyway. So
yeah,
I'm going to stop again.
I didn't think tight end was like super deep as I was doing my research. Like, I felt like I got to like 10 and I was like, okay, I'm fine with it. Like after 10, I felt like it wasn't that many guys I was like that excited about. But
okay,
tight end's just like a fickle position at times.
It can be, absolutely. But again, I think it's becoming more important in the NFL, which the data supports anyway. So and they're scoring more points than they historically have ever. Also, well, we can jump into it. I'm gonna let you do the first tight end pick. I will leave mine to somewhat of a mystery until I go.
Okay, I feel like I probably know who you are, but maybe not. Who knows? I feel like you love the guy last year who maybe and he did well for you. So I'm assuming
2 years.
Yeah. My number one, which is no surprise, I'm holding true to my boy Brock Bowers. He did kind of do me dirty last year. I gotta admit, it was a rough year. Injuries to him, bad QB play, just bad offense altogether. The Raiders were just a mess last year. Obviously, they got the first overall pick, but Brock Bowers, he's still a beast. I mean, he had that big 3 touchdown game. He had some glimpses of what he could be last year. And then the Raiders, they cleaned house, bringing in exciting new coach Clint Kubiak. Love his zone run option scheme. Plus, bringing in serviceable veteran quarterback Kirk Cousins, who's supposed to kind of right the ship, steady the ship there for a little bit until they eventually want to give first overall pick Mendoza the reins. So, expecting a really big year from Ashton Genty. And tight end is the position that really benefits from a good run game because it pulls up those linebackers, and the tight end just kind of do those little hook routes right behind the linebackers. So, I think with Genty having a big year, which I'm hoping on, I'm kind of banking on, I think that also frees up Bowers for an even better year. I get it. He burned me last year. Some people out there might be burned, might not want to take him as the number one tight end, but I still think he's just an absolute beast, and he's my number one tight end.
So, not to give anything away, before I make my pick, I want this, but again, I have been a McBride truther since late 2023, 2024 on our show. He was my tight end 2. In 2025, he was my tight end 1. In our tight ends episode, I actually went back and recorded the clip, so I'm going to put it into this video. I literally said that 2025 was going to be the last year to squeeze any value out of him at the tight end position because he would end up as tight end 1 in 2026. And that's, as far as ADPs go, has essentially happened, and everything I said has happened. So I'm going to put that in there. But, he's definitely scoring more than 2 touchdowns, and he's going to get a ton of opportunities, even if Marvin Harrison takes a step forward. I knew it wasn't going to happen again. Same thing's happening here. Trey McBride's going to take the reins. I loved him last year. I got value at tight end 3 when I picked him up and rode him all year, but so you can still squeeze some of that value until Brock Bowers poops to bed, and then Trey McBride is undisputed tight end 1 next year in 2026. Now, I also want to say that I honestly don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this. I truly believe that these two are there's so many good and bad with each of these that it's hard to just say definitively one is 100% better than the other at a pick perspective. If anybody tells you that, I feel like, they're not being totally truthful. For sure. So after I've done my spiel, my tight end number 1 this year is Brock Bowers.
Oh!
So it is Brock Bowers. Yes.
Oh, okay.
I am going against my boy, and I know people listening know that I'm a big McBride guy. Alex knows this, so that's why he reacted that way. So let me explain my thought process behind this. So Bowers, he gets a huge upgrade at play caller. Clint Kubiak is substantially better than Chip Kelly was, who got fired in the middle of the season. In Seattle, Kubiak operated under center around a 55% rate, which was top in the NFL, which is bonkers. I think he was only behind McVay in under center rate. In 2024, when Brock Bowers was under center and he ran routes, he averaged a mind-boggling 0.72 fantasy points per route run and an absurd 3.81 yards per route run. So from a fit perspective, Kubiak's offense fits beautifully, which is kind of what you were saying about the run game, play action, under center type of situation. The Raiders have no other offensive weapons except Genty, of course. So you might, I might get cheeky with my wide receiver rankings and pick a Raider when we get there. But essentially, Brock is miles above everyone else. And over the past 2 seasons, he has only trailed McBride in route share, right? I care about volume. You got to have route share. You got to be on the field in order to catch passes. And the Raiders are projected to be underdogs in 13 of their 16 line games with I think it's a 4.5 spread, which is 29th in the NFL. So they're going to be playing from behind a lot. So that's all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Now, the bad stuff is the Raiders have one of the worst offensive lines in the league, in the NFL. Even though they signed Tyler Lindenbaum, it's still a terrible situation. I know Kirk Cousins has been favorable from a tight end perspective, but he is basically a statue right now in that pocket. And if people aren't it's tough. Mendoza's probably going to end up being the QB at week 8, which maybe might not be a terrible thing when we compare it to McBride's situation when we get there. And the other bad thing is Raiders are projected to score 19 points a game. So when we talk about touchdowns, super limited, and same with Genti, right? It's not looking great. But if maybe only those two were scoring touchdowns, maybe it's not so bad. So that's kind of the bad with Bowers, but he's my tight end 1 for a lot of the reasons that I gave at the top and what I like most. So I'm sorry, McBride. I'm sorry.
Yeah, hey, that shows maturity out of you, Josh. You showed a lot of growth right there. Putting your boy McBride down. Well, then I'm pretty sure we're both probably having the number 2 spot. And it's a 1A 1B situation. Clear top tier 2 is below these guys, and it's a big jump there, kind of like the quarterback episode I was saying with Josh Allen. After that, it was clear gap. Trey McBride, he's gonna be a lot of people's number 1. Totally get it. Guy went berserk last year. He finished with a weekly top 3 tight end scoring 8 times last year. 8 times he's top 3. For a notorious, I kind of mentioned tight ends a fickle position. For a fickle position, that kind of consistency is kind of unheard of. So even if it can't keep up with just that insane target share from last year, the Cardinals appear to be one of the worst teams in the league. So you imagine there being a lot of garbage time opportunities, kind of like how you mentioned with Brock Bowers, a lot of playing from behind. Honestly, the biggest reason for me not to take McBride as tight end 1 is that the Cardinals decided to hire Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive coordinator. This is a guy who's just been coasting off the peak Rodgers years hype for a while now. He just hasn't had any kind of fun offenses in 5 years. So I still like McBride as an absolute beast, and I would be very happy to have him on my team, but I just have him in the 2 spot.
Agreed. McBride is the clear number 2 in my mind. Again, I'm going to go through the good and the bad like I did with Brock. So from a consistency perspective, he's actually seen 100 targets consistently in the past 3 years, every single year. In the past 2 years, he's averaged 110 receptions and over 1,100 yards receiving in each of the seasons, at least. Mike LaFleur is from the new offensive coordinator, new head coach from the McVay system, but we haven't seen many games where he's actually run an offense. So we don't really know what he'll end up implementing and what perspective, right? McVay went to 13 personnel last year. So what's going to come out of, his play calling, if you can believe it. Now you talked about Arizona not scoring or playing from behind, but Arizona's projection is worse than the Raiders and double, significantly worse. So they're projected to lose 15 of the 16 line games currently, and their spread is +8. So the Raiders was +4.5.
Yeah.
Just craziness. They're going to be playing from behind, which is just silly. They aren't projected to win a game until week 15. Can you guess who that team might be that they're projected to win a game?
At home versus the Jets.
Okay. It is the Jets. I don't know if it's a home game or not, but you're probably right. I would imagine that it's a home game. So
I just figured the home might be if it was at the Jets, I was they probably would lose. At least Vegas would give the Jets that.
Right. Great guess. So yes, that's 100% right. So that's the good. The bad situation is that you have to hope that Michael Wilson, who just broke out, Marvin Harrison Jr., who is going into his 3rd year, won't kind of garnish those targets, take those targets away from him. And historically, I wrote an article about this. Year 3, year 4, year 5 wide receivers are the most productive years of their career, essentially. So check the website out about that. And even though if you don't believe in Marv, year 3 is when the breakouts, year 4 is typically when they happen. Brissett did get a contract. He got some guaranteed money for a year, but Carson Beck realistically could be the quarterback come week 8 or 9. In my mind, I think they overdrafted him. Yeah, just to see. I mean, at that point, they're going to have lost 8 straight games. Why would they not try to put the rookie in? And from a fantasy perspective, that's significantly worse, right? McBride might pop off for 8 or 9 weeks, but then we get Carson Beck, and they're we're going to lose anyway. We might as well give the rookie a shot. And now his points are impacted because he's not as good at the corner.
Right down right in the fantasy playoff stretch too.
Right. Yeah. Maybe he is better, but if we're talking about Bauer's situation where we go from Kirk to the number 1 pick, or we go from Brissett, who we know is good with Bowers, to Carson Beck, Bowers wins that situation in my opinion. The good news is that the offensive line is significantly better. I think they're like middle of the tier range, so they're not terrible. So hopefully that should help back out a little bit. And the last bad thing is McBride's volume in 2025 was the most by tight ends since like 2019 Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
He ran 160 more routes than the next closest tight end in the league. So regression
That's like 10 a game.
Imminent. Yeah,
9
regression is imminent. Michael Wilson was the same way. He ran a silly amount of routes for the amount of time that he played. So
those boys got cardio in.
Yeah, for sure. Thing is, Marv didn't get passed to a lot, but
yeah.
Anyways, McBride is like the pure volume play again in 2026. He has a worse late year situation, 2, 3, 4 wide receivers to compete with. I think McBride is like a safe floor play, and I think Brock is the ceiling play. And that's why I have McBride as my number 2 and Brock is my number 1.
You love a good ceiling play. You love a good
I do.
Go big, go home. Mamba mentality. All right, moving over. Start off tier number 2. I'm assuming this is also where your tier 2 starts. My number 3 is gonna be Tyler Warren. I feel like 3 and 4 might be, we'll see if we ping pong, but these kind of seem like a consensus kind of 3 and 4. Tyler Warren, hit the ground running really hard last year. Out of the gate was just, he scores double digits in 8 of his first 12 games. Unfortunately, once Danny Dimes went down, his season kind of cratered. Jones come back from his Achilles injury. We'll see. He's claiming he's gonna be ready for week 1. Achilles injuries are pretty tough, and he was kind of, his mobility was kind of a big part of his game. So, we'll see if he's still as spry. But I'm hoping him and Warren pick back up right where they left off. The Colts also lost Michael Pittman this offseason, so could kind of be even more targets for him this season, more opportunities. But yeah, I got him as my tight end 3.
Okay, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. My tight end number 3 is my tactical nuke. This is my 25-player kill streak. You pick this guy, you have the potential to just pop off and win your league.
Can I guess?
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm assuming it's Loveland. I mean, you love I know you love the Bears and Ben Johnson.
It is not Loveland. You're never going to get with this. So
number 3 is someone I'm not going to guess.
You're not going to guess. It's
Tucker
my boy.
Kraft?
If you guess who it is. My boy. Who's my boy?
I don't know. A tight end? Oh, Kyle Pitts?
Not Kyle Pitts, but he's on my list. All right. You had enough guesses. It is George Kittle. Kittle is my tactical nuke tight end this year. He is my tight end 3. I truly believe he could win people's leagues if he stays healthy, right? The community has him, I think, like 10th round or something, which is a freaking crime. In healthy games last year, he averaged 12.1 points per game, 20% target share, 25% targets per out run, 2.3 yards per out run, 24% first read target share, 0.49 fantasy points per out run, and 14% first down rate per out run. So when we all that data I just went over, the takeaway is he was top 4 in every single category at tight end. And in games that he finished, he ran 82% of the route share, which is normally top 3 in the NFL, typically every year. The Niners, they're projected to score 25 points a game, which is 3rd in the NFL, 48 points in a game total, which is 7th, and 12 of the 16 games they're projected to score over 24 points. The only thing that is holding him back is the electrical substation. As long as it does not take his soul, you need to draft Kittle in 10th, 11th round, and just if he stays on the field, you're getting a tight end 3, no questions asked in my mind. I just have no doubt.
I like Kittle. I will be talking about him momentarily, but moving on to my number 4, the one I thought maybe you were going to do at 3, Colston Loveland. Loveland's season was kind of the exact opposite of Tyler Warren's I talked about, where Warren started hot and then kind of cratered at the end. Loveland did nothing for the first little bit. He was barely even seeing the field till about week 8. But then from weeks 9 through 18, he scored the 2nd highest fantasy points among tight ends. It's on a Ben Johnson-led Bears offense. They're going into year 2 with that scheme. We're kind of hoping for a little bit of growth. Maybe Caleb Williams has a little bit of growth here. The jury's still kind of out on Caleb. We don't know, even though he did get that cover in Madden, which I guess was whatever, kind of random, but whatever. Made some dope plays, but he's also had some pretty bad stretches of quarterback play. So Loveland's it's all going to kind of feast on whether or not they're good, explosive Bears offense or not. But I got him as my tight end 4.
So I got some data on Loveland. I also got some data on Warren. So my number 4, you talked about some of this, but I'm going to kind of share some of the facts on it. So my number 4 is Tyler Warren. So I got him as my number 4 tight end behind only Kittle. Again, similar ranking as you, kind of from that perspective, besides the curveball I just threw. You mentioned this, but when Daniel Jones was healthy, Warren had a 2.0 yards per out run. After DJ was injured, he plummeted to a 0.9 toward the end of the season, which terrible. Shane Steichen also used play action. I think it was 20% on the Colts offensive plays. On those plays, Warren had a 30% first read target share, which is 4th in the NFL, and a 0.54 fantasy points per out run. During DJ health perspective, when he was healthy, they ran it 27% out of play action. After he got hurt, they dropped that down to 20%. So when we talk about efficiency with Warren, it all correlated with quarterback play and what they could do on the offensive side of the ball, and what the quarterback felt comfortable doing. Michael Pittman, you mentioned this, but it's 108 targets that are vacated. Also, Alex Pierce, I don't think he's going to be fully healthy until maybe week 6, even if he comes back and plays in week 1. Yeah, he's on PUP right now. He's riding the bike. They say he's going to be back. I get it, but I don't think he's going to be football ready until week 6. Downs is projected to play more outside, which I think will give Warren more looks in the slot. Downs was first in the NFL running out of the slot at 80%. So that opens up some of those opportunities. And I honestly would not be surprised at all if Warren finished with the most receiving yards and most receptions on the team by the end of the year. So that's why I like him at number 4. I think he's got a good upside hit from that person.
I'm moving on to my number 5. I got Tucker Kraft, the Packer. He was off to an electric start as well last year. Kind of talking about Warren had a good start. Tucker Kraft was actually tight end number 1 through the first 8 weeks. And then he tore his ACL. So, we're going to have to see how that ACL affects him this year from just a playing time perspective, but also an athleticism perspective. I mean, Kraft is kind of known for being a really speedy guy, and he's got some of the best yards after the catch at the tight end position. So
for sure.
Will that still be present? I don't know. Will he need to be eased into the year? Is the snap count going to start slow? I don't know. It's a little bit of a gamble, but he does have legit tight end 1 upside.
I got some data on Kraft too. So I'm going to talk about Loveland. He is my number 5. So he comes in after Tyler Warren. I feel like there's just so much to be said. Again, check the draft guide out because I wrote so much about these tight ends. There's this insane amount. But I'll keep it simple. You can get Luther Burden at a 2-round discount. You can get Roma Dunze at a 4-round discount. I'm not taking the player who will run the least amount of routes 2 rounds higher, in the 3rd or 4th round at ADP. I'm just not doing it. He could very well finish as a top tight end. I get it. The cost is just too expensive for my taste when there's 2 other very capable pass catchers on that team. Going back to the explosion that he had at the end of the year, my biggest concern is that it was game script dependent. It was perfect for volume. So Chicago played, it was the last 4 games. It was weeks, I think it was 17, 18, and then the 2 playoff games. Chicago played in a 42-38 shootout against my boys, San Francisco. They fell behind to Detroit 16-0. They trailed to Green Bay 21-3 in the playoffs. And Caleb Williams attempted 42 passes against the Rams. So throw in an injury, a Dunze, a Burden injury here and there at different points in those 4-game stretch. He got insane game script, injury issues. I think it just inflated all of those numbers towards the end of the year. Obviously, you can't predict that kind of stuff, but I'm taking that span of games with kind of a grain of salt, which is why I have him at 5. I get the upside. I'm just not drafting him at the 3 or 4 round cost that he is currently, because I just like wide receivers there.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I know you love your Ben Johnson offense. I would have thought you'd been a little more hyped for him.
I mean, he is so good. Yeah, just so
I was gonna say that was just the MO of the Bears last year, where Caleb would suck for the first half. They would get in a big hole, and then they would just put on some theatrics and all of a sudden come down with some crazy stuff. So now my number 6 was actually the start of my tier 3. Sorry, Josh. Okay. But here is your boy, George Kittle, for me. Again, kind of another big, massive injury kind of question mark. I know we just talked about Kraft with the ACL. Kittle's got the Achilles he's kind of working with when he is, 32 years old. So, is he going to spring back kind of as quick as we're hoping for? I don't know. But yes, 49ers offense, Kyle Shanahan, Brock Purdy should be efficient as always. Yeah. Kittle come back fresh and give those juicy points, hopefully. And also the addition of Mike Evans kind of stretching the field. Safety's got to respect Evans going deep on him all the time, which is going to kind of open up that middle of the field for Kittle, for him to kind of really thrive there. So I got him starting my 3 spot. I don't know if Kittle at this age is really have like true tight end 1 potential, but I mean, I could see him doing like a tight end 3 or 4 kind of finish.
God, he's so good, dude. Like,
I
don't
know,
care if it takes. I don't care. Like, if it takes him to week 6 to get healthy and he doesn't play a game, I will hold him on my team, because when he does play, he's just going to go ballistic.
And he's great to watch. Like, sometimes it's about just like having fun watching the guy play. He's one of the more fun people to watch play.
And we're not doing our wide receiver episode, but I also love Mike Evans, dude. Like, Brock Purdy, best deep ball thrower in the league.
Dude.
Ugh, so juicy. All right.
You're in for a treat this year, getting to watch Evans just on the regular.
Hopefully he stays at the field.
It was a good run. It was a good run with my Bucks. I was happy with it.
All right, so my number 6 tight end is Kyle Pitts. All right.
Oh, I knew it was coming.
Kyle Pitts.
I knew it was coming. Of course.
I started last year. It was really weird. I started to like Kyle Pitts out of nowhere, and the analytics just worked,
Who was throwing to him?
All right, so I'll give you some information. Like, I get it. I'll give you some information. The new head coach, Stefanski, he had one of the most tight end-centric offenses in the NFL as a head coach through 5 years. So his tight ends were 2nd in targets, 4th in touchdowns, and 6th in receiving yards. So we're talking about, like, he is the guy. He's one of the guys that's going to be getting the ball in that offense. Kyle Pitts is the second option in the offense. Like, he's going to see at least an 80% route share. Last year, he saw an 86% route share, which is just crazy. They just paid him a bunch of money. Like, they're going to use this guy. And I think he's the second wide receiver. Like, you could argue Bijan maybe is, but it's London and Pitts and Slot Merchant, Zachariah Branch, and some other Jags like Jahan Dotson and Orize Zachariah, like a bunch of Jags. So he's going to be the second option. And like you mentioned, the Falcons are going to have 2 quarterbacks. Like, I don't think it's going to matter. Like, he's going to get opportunities, right? What I care about is volume, and I think he's going to get volume even if, Joe Flacco, because both those guys fall apart and he gets traded to them, ends up throwing him passes. So Pitts at number 6, baby. And he's in my value pocket. Kittle, value pocket. Pitts, value pocket. And then I got one more coming up for value pocket.
Did not crack my top 10, but hey, have fun, have at it. Hey, I get it. When he does good, sure. But man, we've been in this run with him for a while. I'm kind of just mentally broken.
Year of the Pitts. Last year he did great. Last year I told y'all I think he was on my list too.
I traded for him like mid-season, and he did not do great kind of down the stretch. Thank you very much. My number 7 is going to be Harold Fannin Jr. Strong rookie season. He immediately became Cleveland's leading receiver, finishing with 72 catches, 6 touchdowns, despite really inconsistent quarterback play. Reports out of camp ain't great, saying looking electric in his sophomore year. Again, I just don't know who the heck will be the Browns starting QB week 1, let alone the rest of the season. It might be, again, all 3 of them going at some point this year. That's legitimately what's really holding him back. Kind of like Kyle Pitts. I just don't know what quarterback I'm going to have out there to know what I can trust.
True.
But the guy's talented, and I wouldn't be surprised if he pops off.
Yeah, so rolling into my number 7 tight end, it is Harold Fannin Jr. Again, he's in my value pocket. Somebody I'll be targeting. If like half PPR, I'm a little lower on him, but full PPR, I'm much higher on him. I think he's going to be a PPR scam in some perspective. Over the full season, he was top 4 in target efficiency metrics at the tight end position. He was 8th in fantasy points per out run, right next to McBride. And after week 7 on, his analytics actually got better because he became a full-time starter at that point. Offensive play callers, I've talked a lot about them, but Todd Monken is a huge upgrade at play caller. I understand that you could be worried about the tight end split like we saw with Andrews and Likely, but I don't think he has the depth yet, even though he drafted a 5th-round talent, tight end Joey Royer, which I do like his athleticism. I just don't think there'll be competition there. Also, Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston. I wrote an entire article about these two. Again, check the website. I just think Fannin is just the best pass catcher on that team. You mentioned it. I'm worried about a Browns quarterback who hasn't played an NFL snap in 650 days. So that's option number 1. Option number 2 is Shedeur Sanders. So, and the offensive line is one of the worst in the NFL. They're also at the bottom, just like Vegas. The last thing I worry about is Vegas is 32nd. The Browns are 32nd in the NFL from an 18 points implied point total per game. The good news, is the worst, is that Fannin saw 90% of his opportunities were in the open field, so not in the red zone. So again, half PPR, I still like him, but I like him even more in PPR leagues as, a potential PPR scam from that perspective.
I'm glad we linked back up there in the 7 spot. All right, moving on to my number 8. I got Sam LaPorta. I mean, it feels like LaPorta, it's kind of become a little underrated after, the expectations got a little out of control after his rookie breakout. Right. I admit I was part of that problem. It's okay. Now we're kind of on the post-hype, post-hype wave. He's still young. He's still talented. He's still playing on one of the league's highest scoring offenses. Before he got hurt last year, he was tight end 7 through 10 weeks. His limited target share does kind of drive his price down. I mean, you got Amon-Ra, you got JMO over there. So I get it. I just think at, tight end 8, he's good value.
I am completely out on LaPorta. I'm not drafting him. And the reason why, you said it, right? He is a floor pick. His upside is tied directly to Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jameson Williams getting hurt. If those two are on the field the whole time, he's not going to be this crazy pop-off tight end. He's a great floor pick. He's probably going to be a tight end 7, for sure. I get it, but I'm probably avoiding him now. If JMO gets injured or if Amon-Ra St. Brown gets injured, there's a high potential that I would go out and trade for him or move him up into my value picks just because he sees way more opportunities when one of those two aren't on the. And my number 8 is Tucker Kraft. The reason why I've dropped Kraft so low, Kraft was one of the guys that I really contemplated over. I fought over. His efficiency in 2025 was just off the charts. He was one of the most efficient tight ends in the league. Even though Dontavian Wicks, Rome Odunze left, I feel like they won't impact his usage or opportunities. Kraft wasn't seeing the same looks, the same opportunities. It's not like he was being pulled off the field for these guys.
He was just making things happen with what he got.
Yeah. And he was just so efficient. So I feel like there's regression coming. Kraft scored a touchdown when he was playing on 19% of his catches, and he accounted for 46% receiving touchdowns when he was healthy for Green Bay in that span. His touchdowns made up 36% of his fantasy points, which was number 2 in the NFL, only behind Dallas Goedert. I like the pick. The issue is his ADP. I think he's moved to tight end 5 now. When he was at tight end 9, 10, awesome. But now he's tight end 5. I just think he's way too expensive with as many tight ends as we've talked about and kind of gone over for the chance that he regresses and doesn't score as many touchdowns, which touchdowns aren't typically sticky. So
sure.
That's where he's at my 8. I get it.
Yeah.
But I'm worried about the regression.
I'm moving on to my number 9, and it's kind of funny because I kind of talk about this concept. And it's actually kind of why you kind of dogged on LaPorta of needing someone to go down in front of him. My number 9 is Jake Ferguson.
Hey, Ferg. I like it.
Ferguson is he's like a sleeping python, just waiting to strike. When CD and Pickens are both healthy, he doesn't get much action. It can be rough. It can be rough. So this is maybe a double tap opportunity for you, Josh. When they're both going, he doesn't do anything. But as soon as one of them misses some time, he pops off. We had one of the stretches last year, weeks 2 through 7. He was the tight end number 1 over that span, averaging 15 points per game. Dallas seems poised again for another high offensive year. Going to get a lot of points again. So you're just kind of waiting. You're just kind of being maybe one of them misses time, Pickens or CD, and then you got a gold mine. But until then, it's going to be a little bit low on the weekly floor. So this could be maybe one of those double tap opportunities for you.
Turd Ferg last year, he was one of the huge Reddit posts that I made about CD and Pickens are gone. I pulled the data and created a chart, and he was Trey McBride without without CD, and everybody was no, you're crazy. He won people leagues. So that was one of my bigger posts. So absolutely, if one of them get injured, he shoots up boards for sure. I do like Ryan Flores. It cost a little bit if one of those get injured, but I think Turd Ferg is probably the move, the safer of the options. So I get floor play. All right, with high upside if somebody gets injured. My number 9 is Dalton Kincaid, and we talked about Kincaid last year, and I hated him because he, and I'll explain why. But Kincaid was the most efficient tight end in all of football. He finished with 27% target per route run, 3.19 yards per route run, 15% first round rate, and 0.6 fantasy points per route run. All of those were first in the NFL. like over everybody. The Bills have a projected point per game of like 26, which is top in the NFL. It's got to be like 1 or 2. The biggest issue, and I shared this last year when he was going crazy, is like he doesn't run enough routes. Like he had a 45% route share, which I think was like 35th in the NFL. If he moved to 65 to 75%, like I'm not even asking for 80. Like I'm asking 65, 70. With these efficiency metrics, probably tight on 3. Like he'd be insane. If he went to 75% or more, he is finishing his tight end 1. Like if for some reason they're like, we're playing him every single down, it's not going to happen, from a blocking perspective. The upside exists. It's probably not going to happen, but late in drafts, this is a guy that I'm just like, let me get a double tap, see what happens. If it doesn't work out and he's 45%, it's probably, he's going to have to be just as efficient. But if he gets that 60 to 70, man, watch out. He could win a lot of people leagues.
All right, last up, and this is actually where I start my tier 4. We're getting a little bit less exciting. Just to finish it off, and kind of surprised you haven't heard his name out your mouth yet, Josh. I got Travis Kelce. I'm surprised he wasn't in your number 1. I know you love this man. The newly married Mr. Swift. The pictures of him in training camp, he's looking pretty chubby. I don't know if you've seen those ones or not.
I've seen some of them.
Even at this stage of his career, Patrick Mahomes just still looks his way in the biggest moments, especially in the red zone. The target floor is there. It is nice. He's like the opposite of Ferguson, where Ferguson's like you're just kind of banking on like a random opportunity to just explode. Kelce, you're not getting that. He's too old for that. He's too slow for that. But he's going to get like 7 or 8 targets a game. He'll probably bring in 5 of them for like 45 yards, and he'll have to score like every like 2 or 3 games. He'll get you a score, So at tight end 10, obviously you've pretty much punted the position at this point. I think that value is fine there.
All right. Yeah, no, I get floor play. Kelce, again, he's not going to be what he did many, many years ago. But yeah, he's definitely a floor play. All right, my number 10, I actually have 2 guys that I like here, Isiah Likely or Mark Andrews. In short, Likely just got a massive contract. He ran 75% of his routes out of the slot in 2025, so we know he's capable of doing more and, being a receiver. He should see plenty of opportunities. He's essentially the second pass catching weapon on the Giants. So, like, he's number 2. He's on the Giants. Like, he's going to get passes. He's going to get looks. He's going to see opportunities. He's talented. He's young. Like, why not? And they just paid him. And then the Mark Andrews pick, they just got Declan Doyle. Completely different offense. Isiah Likely is finally gone. He doesn't exist anymore. He is the second most veteran pass catcher on that offense. Even if I do like some of the rookie wide receivers that they took over, and camp has been exploding about some of them, he potentially number 2 in that offense and should get looks and opportunities in a better offense. Not better, but more pass-focused offense for him.
Yeah, the 2 teammates still right next to each other. The former teammates still right next to each other,
Yeah, right? I thought that was fitting, right? So I thought that was fitting. But all right, that's all we got for y'all today. Hope you enjoyed it. If so, give us a like and subscribe. If not, we just appreciate you hanging out. Don't forget to comment